Hi everybody, my name is Carly. Welcome to my channel. So I have decided to start a reading journal, and not just start a reading journal, but start making videos about my reading journal. Really quick, I'll go into the specs of this journal before I start just chatting away. I am using an A5 Archer and Olive vegan leather notebook, and it's a notebook from a collection from like back in 2019 probably. I fell in love with this like raven design way back in the day. I just have not gotten around to actually using this notebook, which I think is great because for a reading journal it has very Edgar Allan Poe vibes, which I love. So I'm finally using it. I have a pile of notebooks that I have not used that I would like to use, so I'm excited to get into like really working one down into being finished. That's my goal, is to finish this notebook and fill it with journaling about all the books that I read. So that's the plan, and I really want to make videos about it. I used to make videos about my planning videos, and I really enjoyed making videos like that. Once the pandemic hit, I was not planning anymore. So for like maybe 2 years I was making planner videos that I really loved making, but in 2020 I just stopped using my planner. I was at home all the time, and it wasn't something that I kept up with, and so the videos also stopped. But I've always really enjoyed making videos, and so I've wanted to get back into it. I've actually wanted to make videos about books just in general, but honestly that's a little bit scary. I don't know why. There's just something. I've never made videos. I mean, I've made vlogs and stuff before with my face in them, but like sit down videos just sound, I don't know, there's just something about it that's a little more intimidating. So maybe someday, but I feel like since I made planner videos in the past, making journal videos isn't really that far of a jump. So that's what I'm doing. I already wanted to make a reading journal, and so I thought, why not just combine everything, make a reading journal, make videos about my reading journal, and also be able to chat about books, since that is something I've been looking to do for a few years now. I have not had a lot of like book buddies since I have started really reading a lot more after I quit grad school. So that is sort of the situation that led me into becoming a reader, I guess. So yeah, okay, I didn't talk about that last page at all, but that was my cover page. I used a sticker from this store that I really like called Earthbound. I think it's called Earthbound Trading Co. And there's like locations in a lot of different places, but they have like a lot of like 70s inspired like hippie designs, and I really like that store for stickers. Actually, they have a lot of cute sticker designs, so a lot of times I'll go in there and pick up some cute stickers. So they'll be kind of like strewn about my journal throughout the pages. So yeah, and then I just used a bunch of different ephemera from like, honestly, from like dropship sites and Amazon. Since I filmed this video, I have like ordered a lot of stuff from different small shops and stuff. That was my favorite part of having the planner that I used to have for years, was buying from small shops and like Etsy shops and websites and stuff, like individually owned little businesses. And I kind of stopped doing that as much when I stopped using my planner. I still ordered from Etsy shops and stuff, especially like other hobbies of mine like crochet and cross stitch and stuff like that, but the sticker purchasing kind of slowed way down, as in like not at all, pretty much. So I'm really excited also to get back into shopping around for stickers and like small shops that sell stickers and stuff. So But yeah, anyway, so I have ordered some stickers since this video, but this video is primarily going to be stickers from like dropship sites and Amazon and things like that. Aside from the giant tracker sticker that I just used, that's from a subscription box from Archer and Olive that came in this spring, I believe, or summer box. It came with a lot of these like very functional type stickers, which I don't really... I do plan or like bullet journal functionally to some extent, but not as structured as a lot of people do. So this worked out better for me in my reading journal. So this will be my reading log. I'll just track every day that I read. I'm not going to track like the number of pages or anything in depth. I'm just going to check off a box if I read that day, basically. Even if it was just like a page or whatever. So that's my plan. And yeah, everything else, that like spinning wheel sticker actually came from a local boba shop. We went there recently, and they were giving away a bunch of free stickers, and I found that one and I was like, that's so cute. So I wanted to use it in my reading journal. It looked kind of like Sleeping Beauty or something. Also, forgive me if my voiceover is a little bit all over the place in terms of quality or like sound. Of course, sound. I am holding my microphone. I might set it on the desk in a little bit and see if that sounds better, but right now I just wanted to see what it sounded like while I'm holding it, and then I just got to talking, so I haven't put it down yet, but you know. What else was I gonna say? There was something else. Oh, speaking of quality, again, like I said, I have not filmed videos in like probably 4.5 to almost 5 years. I haven't filmed videos. Oh my gosh, I feel so old. But yeah, anyway, I haven't filmed videos in quite a while, and so sort of and I've moved since then and all of that. So just the quality of like the actual filming, I haven't like quite nailed down yet. So one, you will see a lot of different lighting because this was filmed. I do have a full-time job, so this was filmed like over many days. Like right now you can see there's a massive glare on my table. That's because I forgot to turn off the overhead light. And my husband likes to come in while I'm doing this and chat with me or do whatever he's doing, and he turns on the light, and then we forget to turn it off when he leaves. And so it's like natural light is coming in from the left, but then there's an overhead light on that, you know, is creating a glare. So the lighting changes quite a bit in this video, hopefully not to the extent that it's like highly disruptive or distracting, but I'm hoping to get like more diligent about being consistent with it, and making sure that I have proper lighting and not have like just all over the place quality, because this video is a little bit like not my favorite in terms of like every clip being high quality, but I don't know, I kind of just wanted to film the process, and if not for anyone else but for myself, it's fun, and I really enjoy making, like, I feel like making videos about things is a hobby in and of itself, and I think a lot of people probably forget that when they watch YouTube videos or whatever. They forget that like there's the hobby of like journaling or whatever the video is about, but then there's also the actual making of the video, that if you're doing it on your own, like that almost is a hobby or a job in and of itself. So yeah, I enjoy the process of like video editing and voiceovers. I love talking, and so just all of it is a process for me. So yeah, it's not really like, it's more for just the fun of it, I guess, if that's what I think that's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, so I mentioned that was my reading log page on the left. On the right here, this is going to be my reference page for rating books. So this year I gave myself the goal of trying to be more consistent with my ratings. Last year I was rating books very much off of like the vibes, and basically like when I shut a book, how do I feel? And that rating is just what I stuck with. But I found myself thinking a lot about books that I gave 3 or 4 stars, and then forgetting about books that I had given 5. And I think that I was feeling like my rating system was a little bit inconsistent, and I just wanted to see if something like this system would help. So this is the Caw Pile system, and this was developed by G at Book Roast. And it just is like this abbreviated, or it's an acronym, not abbreviated. It's not an abbreviation. It's an acronym for seven different aspects of a book. So I'm sure if you watch reading journal videos, you have encountered this before, so I'm probably over explaining it, but if you haven't heard of it, it just stands for characters, atmosphere, writing, and that can be like writing style, writing quality, whatever, plot, intrigue, logic and relationships, and then enjoyment. And you rate each of those qualities or each of those aspects of a book out of 10, and then you divide by 7 and you get a number, and that number corresponds with a star rating. So I have found myself needing to look it up every single time I finish a book, and so I wanted to incorporate a spread in my journal so that when I have my journal next to me and I finish a book, I can just flip it open and see what star rating corresponds with the numbers that I ended up with, instead of having to Google it every single time. So another source of decoration for this journal setup is this sticker book, I guess, that I showed a little bit earlier. And it's a sticker, I forget what it's called. I think it's like bibliophile sticker book or something, and you can get it from like Barnes and Noble or Target or wherever, and it just has a bunch of like vintage antique looking designs on a bunch of stickers. It's literally a sticker book, and that kind of like fabulous looking man that was on my Caw Pile page, that's where that sticker came from, was from that sticker book. So you'll probably see that pop in and out a few times, but this was the only page that had already been written in of this notebook. I did decide like last year that I wanted to do a writing journal, and I picked this one out for that, but then I only did one page in it and then never touched it again. So for this page, I fully covered it with this like almost craft paper. It's not really craft paper, I don't think, but it's this like tan paper that I got from a travel journal that I have, and so I just kind of like tore that out and pasted it onto this page to cover up all of that writing. And this is going to be my new releases spread. I am filming this like halfway through the year. I just decided that I wanted a place I was journaling about my books elsewhere, and it wasn't really working out for me in like it was like a structured reading journal that was like set up. I mean, yeah, it was structured. It was like set up already for you, and you fill in spaces. And I just felt like that was not working for me, because I don't consistently review the same aspects of a book every single time, which I know that I just mentioned Caw Pile, which is supposed to be consistently reviewing the same aspects of every book. But when I'm like writing out my thoughts, or wanting to like look back on how I felt about a book, I'm not technically going to be looking back at the whole like Caw Pile score. I'm going to be looking back on different aspects of it. And so I don't really need like a structured reading journal that like asks you the spice level of a book, or like, did this book make you cry, or did it make you happy, or whatever. I don't know if I need all of that structure. I think that I'll write my feelings out and not really need that type of like guidance in terms of journaling about the books that I read. So I just felt like a journal like this, that's just a notebook that I can scrapbook in and use a bunch of stickers and things like that, just kind of felt more like it would work better for me. I still like the idea of a structured reading journal, because there's something also fun about just like opening something that's already set up for you that you can just fill in. And I think that's why I also like, you know, structured planners and things like that. But I've just found especially with my ADHD and stuff, having something that's not structured gives me a little bit more freedom to not, you know, stick to one thing. I feel like if something is structured for me and I can't stick to it, I end up giving up basically and just not doing it anymore. So one of the things that I've been working on a lot this year with my ADHD is, if something isn't working for me, just change it and move on. And so I was saying earlier that I do bullet journal, but not in the way that I see a lot of people bullet journaling online. And that's because I do not bullet journal in a structured way. Like, I don't go week by week. I don't do like every single month. I don't do weekly spreads necessarily. And that's just because if I miss a week, or if I only fill out one day of a week, or I just need a big messy to-do list one day or something like that, I just find myself abandoning the whole thing because I can't keep it consistent. And so I have had to really, really force myself to break out of that structure and allow for a lot of like, I don't know, a lot of like going with the flow and changing things as needed and not worrying about it. And that's my own like internal pressure. I don't think externally there's any pressure to like keep things exactly the way they are at all times. But for some reason, my brain just does not like the idea of setting up some structure for myself to follow. And then if I can't follow it in the future, like that just feels not okay in my brain and I can't move on. So then I end up with like a quarter filled notebook and then I never touch it again. And I've been working on that this year for sure. Anyway, so what was I saying about that? I don't remember. I was saying that I actually really like structured planners, but I had to kind of abandon that a little bit just because my brain doesn't really allow itself to be structured for too long, and my life isn't that structured in terms of like having consistent to-do lists and things like that. So I just, I like having, well, I don't know if I like having a little bit more freedom. I'm forcing myself to have a little bit more freedom and embrace that. I think a lot of people do a really good job of, not feeling bad about letting themselves be free with their own journal. But for some reason, my brain needs to be forced into that type of relationship with my journal. So anyway, I don't think any of that probably made a lot of sense. So this next page is my unhaul spread. So this is just for me to like, it's basically just a brain dump of me putting down books that I might want to get rid of or that I definitely want to get rid of, and then I'll cross them off as I get rid of them. And it just kind of helps me like visualize the books that I still own but that are no longer on my TBR, and that I know I'm not going to be reading this year, because I do really, really like to plan out my reading. Even if I don't follow it, it is like half of the fun to me is planning out what I'm going to read. And if I have a bunch of unread books on my physical shelf at home, I will default to, oh, well, that's on my TBR then. And so it helps me a lot to have a list of books that I am getting rid of or would like to get rid of, so that I can reference that when I'm looking at all of my bookshelves. And I don't know, it just helps my brain know like, okay, this one I'm getting rid of. I don't need to read it. I don't want to read it. And I have committed myself to deciding not to read that, I guess. And things move on and off of the unhaul list, which is why I have that maybe section. A lot of times it makes me feel better to know that, okay, if I decide not to read this book, then I would have room for this other book that I want to read even more. And so, it's nice to like put something on a maybe unhaul list and see if that brings up any other books that I would be interested to read. And if not, then I'll throw it off of the maybe list and put it back on my TBR. So that's kind of my mentality with this one. I don't know how functional it'll end up being, but I kind of wanted to give myself space to do this, because I definitely do it like on my Goodreads all the time. I like throw together a shelf on my Goodreads of like, okay, these are books I want to get rid of. And so I thought it might be nice to have like a physical place to list out those books. I also love how I ended up with a very jungle inspired theme here. I didn't really go for that at the beginning of this spread, but it kind of just took me there after I went with the green paper and the florals and all of that. It kind of just, the inspiration took over. And this washi tape, the jungle washi tape, the grid is from Amazon, but this jungle washi tape is from Simply Gilded. And her landscape washi tape is beautiful. These jungle ones are probably from like like 2018 or something. They're from a long time ago. So you probably can't get those anymore, but I know that she has other landscape washi tapes that are really beautiful. So yeah, highly recommend. Next up, I have my library wish list and my purchase wish list spread. So for the past year, I have, well, not the past year, I guess for this year, 2024, I'm on a book buying hiatus. I'm not going to call it a book buying ban because I'm definitely buying books, but it is definitely a hiatus of some sort. So back in like 2022-ish, when I really started picking up my reading and purposefully dedicating myself to becoming a reader, I had no books. I owned books when I was younger, like a teenager and in college and things like that, but I had moved so many times that at that point I just owned 0 books. And it was honestly kind of nice because I was able to start with a really fresh slate, a clean slate, I guess. And I would buy like 4 or 5 books and just read those. And then when I was done, or when I was like on the last one, I would make another book purchase and buy like 4 or 5 books and read those the next month. And it was a really great time to be reading in my life. But at that time, I had also just quit my PhD. Oh, I just like ran my nails into my microphone. Sorry about that. At that time, I had just quit my PhD program and was stuck in a city that I didn't really want to be in anymore, but I had to let my lease run through. So I just decided that I was going to live off of the money I had left from my stipend and just not get a job because I was going to be moving cities anyway. So I just was privileged enough to be able to take off for a little bit of time. And so I dedicated my time to reading. That was my goal in that time period. And so I was reading a ton. And then later in that year, I got a job and had less time to read, but I was still purchasing books at like the same rate, if not more, because I was making money. And so then I started to pile up a lot of books. And so now I really need a break from having so many unread books on my shelf, because it really does add a lot of weight to my shoulders to have like 50 plus books that I have not read, because I do have impulse control issues. I think I mentioned my ADHD earlier in this video, and it really causes me to not be able to control impulses very easily. And so I buy a lot of things, especially things that I'm interested in, like books, and then the impulse passes and I no longer want to read them after a certain amount of time. So I just have to go on a hiatus here. So my library wish list, you can see I have book title, author, and then I have like a little grid with 4 checkboxes underneath the checked out section, and then a checkbox for if I've read the book or not. So I'm kind of giving myself some space to check out a book multiple times before I actually read it. And that has allowed me to kind of use the library as not a replacement, but as like an impulse, like giving in to my impulse to purchase a book. Instead, I will go and check it out from the library. So I'll let myself like go to the library and check out whatever I want. And if it sits on a table and does not get read and I have to return it, like I'm not going to cry about that. It's free. And so I can check out a book, multiple times before I actually read it, or just never read it at all. But I can kind of keep track of that here. And I don't know if it's really a wish list or tracker. I'm not sure, but I put books on there that I want to check out and have not yet as well. So that's why I said wish list. And then my purchase wish list, I have unread and read before, because I do want to distinguish between those. I am definitely allowed to buy books that I have read before. It's just buying a bunch of unread books and not reading them that's kind of getting a little bit overwhelming. So I kind of want to split up like the books that I'm buying that I have not read. And then in that same vein, by the way, my cats will enter the frame a lot, especially Mango. So this is Mango. He cannot leave me alone if I am doing anything with paper or cardboard or anything that is remotely close to a piece of trash. He cannot avoid. So he jumps into frame very, very often. Mouse, the gray kitty that you saw earlier, he doesn't do it as much, but he does enter the frame a few times. So yeah, I just have to work with it. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm in a room that doesn't have a door. I'm just in my dining room in these clips, so I can't keep them out. So it is what it is. But keeping within that same vein of purchasing books, these 2 spreads are more in depth for the books purchased for this year. I really love the like bookshelf spreads that people do, but I don't really want to use it to track the books that I've read. I feel like the way that I've set up my journal, I think that would be a little bit redundant, because later on I do have a tracker that I will fill in as I read books. That's like tracking the number of books I've read, but I don't really need like a visual bookshelf spread for the books that I've read. I much prefer, for myself at least, to have a visual representation of the books that I'm bringing into my house, into my library. So that's what this is. This is me giving myself some space to show like physically what does it kind of look like, obviously on a tiny little piece of paper compared to what the actual books look like on my shelf, but visually how many books am I bringing in onto my shelves. And so the left side is kind of that visual representation, and then on the right side I have a table that I will fill out with the book title of the book that I purchased, the store that I purchased it in, and then the date. That'll kind of help me figure out, you know, am I buying a lot of books around my birthday? Am I buying more books in the summer? That kind of thing. And I also like to track where I bought a book, because one of the things that I'm kind of not, there's my husband pulling Mango out of the frame. One of the things that I'm trying not to limit myself too much on is buying books when I travel. That's one of the things I really, really love to do is when I'm on a trip, to go to a local bookstore and buy a book there, if not more than one, because there's just something, it's like a souvenir for me. It sits on my shelf and I remember exactly where I got it and how I was feeling when I got that book, and what kind of, you know, what kind of trip was it? Was it a work trip? Was it a vacation? Was it just me and my husband, or was it like a family thing? I have one of my favorite books of all time that I read in the past, The Starless Sea. I bought at a bookstore during, like, not during my brother's wedding, but during my brother's wedding weekend. And so the memory of like buying that book at my brother's favorite bookstore during his wedding weekend, I went to that store with my mom and my aunt and my cousin. It was like a little girls outing to the bookstore. It was just really special. So I love to have memories like that with books that I purchase. So anyway, I just like to keep track of what store I got the book in. That was a really long-winded way of saying why I have a column for the store that I purchased a book in. Anyway, underneath the table that I'm drawing now, I also have a key that is relevant for the bookshelf on the left side. And I have, you'll see me draw it in, but I put like 3 different, I scratched the microphone again. I'm so sorry. I'm like talking with my hands and my microphone is right in front of me, and I probably need to figure out how not to do that. So I used 3 different colors on this key, one of them being meant for, I will color in the spine. Okay, let me start over. I'll put the title of the book in the spine when I buy it. And then if I have read that book before, I will color it in one color. If I read the book after I buy it, but it's within this year, I will color it in a different color. And then if I don't really plan on reading that book this year, it's planned for next year anyway, then I'll color in the 3rd color. So hopefully by the end of the year, all of the spines will be colored in, even if I don't read them until next year, because hopefully, I don't know. I just don't want empty books, I guess. So that's what you're seeing me set up now, is the key. I also am putting a couple of symbols on there. One symbol means that I purchased the book new, and then the other one means that I purchased it used or thrifted. So I think that's everything in that key though. Yeah, I believe so. Okay, so that kind of covers the books purchased spreads. And then after this, I'm going to move on to kind of like just an open list of books that I would like to read someday. So I kind of keep multiple different lists of books, and sometimes it's like a book that I'm interested in that I want to read someday, but I don't really have any immediate plans to pick it up. And so I kind of needed a space for that, and I'm calling it my someday TBR. So that's what I'm going to set up on the next page. While I do that though, I did mention kind of what was going on when I decided I wanted to become like more of a reader. And I wanted to talk about that just a little bit because I haven't had like an outlet to do that, to like chat with anyone about, other than my husband. I talk to him about it all the time. But I wanted to kind of explain my background of reading so that if anybody's watching this, you can kind of get an idea of where I'm coming from making these videos and what kind of reader I am. And since I already set up, I told you what this spread is going to be, I think now is the time for me to tell that story. So I graduated from my master's degree in 2019. So I am in like a STEM world. I have an engineering degree and do like earth science stuff for I did earth science type things for my master's. And then I went and did like an internship type program in 2019, right after I graduated my master's at NASA. And so I did like earth science research for a couple of semesters. And then COVID hit. So it hit while I was in my program and I had to like rush home. I literally like rode the train because I didn't want to drive. I didn't know anything about like that time of the world was insane for everyone. But when I think back, I'm just like, man, I knew nothing. So I didn't want to drive home. I was living in Miami at the time, but for my internship, I had to live like states away. So I would have had to drive like 17 hours. And so instead I took the train home. I don't know why I'm telling that story. Anyway, during COVID, I also got a job, like a temporary like internship type position to do some field work for earth science type research. And so all of that job was outdoors. So it wasn't a COVID issue, which is great. I did it with one of my friends from my previous internship. And so we both went and lived in Michigan for a summer and worked outdoors. And then we both kind of decided that we wanted to get our PhDs. Like we both decided it, but we weren't getting them together. We went to totally different schools, but we both applied for our PhDs during that time. And so around, I think it was like, when was it? Am I saying 2022, but it was really 2021? Is that true? Yikes. Is that true? I don't think so. Maybe though. I have to look at my journals. I can't remember what year it was. I think it was 2021. And let me check. Hold on. Okay, yeah, time flies. It was 2021. I started my PhD and I did about a year of it, and it just was not for me. The group that I was in, the research I was doing, all of it was just not for me. And so I ended up leaving my PhD. But what ended up happening is that I was in a city that I had no business being in. I had never lived there before. We had only moved there for my PhD, and then I had no like connections to that city in terms of like living there long term. And so we had a lease in this city that I did not need to put down roots in, so I didn't really want to like look for a science job. And I was so traumatized I had a lot of like academic trauma, not just from my PhD, but just from like academia in general. I really, really felt so burnt out and lost, and just like, yeah, I was not doing well mentally. I really needed to step away. And so thankfully my husband worked from home because of COVID, and thankfully we just decided, like, I had money saved up from my stipend, and my husband was working from home and making money. So we were just like, look, we only have a few months left on our lease. Let's just like live off of that, and you can heal mentally and emotionally from everything that happened. Not that anything horrible happened, but just like academia, I'm sure you guys have been in a similar situation where like just the experience itself is a lot of emotional turmoil. And so I just needed to recover from that. And so thankfully I was in a really, really privileged situation where I was able to do that. Really quick, I want to mention that spread I just did is an author backlog. I'm titling these things with no, like, I don't know where I got that. I don't know if I saw someone else have an author backlog or if I just called it that randomly. But basically what it is just, I wanted a place to put, like, there are certain authors that I'm interested in that have like a long backlist of books that I've never read before. And I wanted a place to keep track of that, but not in like my someday TBR spread, because I feel like T. Kingfisher is a great example. She has like, maybe, I don't know, T. Kingfisher has like 13 to 16 books that I have not read that I'm interested in. But I don't want to put all of those books on my someday TBR. It would just be like taken up completely with T. Kingfisher books. So that's what the author backlog is for, is just to put in any like backlist books from an author that I'm interested in, basically. And then this spread is actually, it ended up being my favorite, I think, out of all of them. But this is my like book tracker and monthly stats spread. So on the left, I did a bunch of squares. My goal is to read 84 books this year, just 7 every month. And so I have 84 squares on the left side. And then on the right, I have every month on her y-axis, and then on the x-axis I have like 1 through 13, and it's just a sideways bar graph of how many books I read each month, just to look at it physically and see kind of where the breakdown of the books I read is. So that's what's going on there. But anyway, I was talking about quitting my PhD and kind of how I ended up here in terms of like being kind of a maybe obsessive reader. I don't know. So I quit my PhD and I was like, okay, I need to do something that has been like, I need to do something that is good for me, that I have wanted to do, but that is not like science related. I need to like step away from the world of STEM and just heal my brain and, you know, apply myself to some other challenge. And the thing that stuck out to me immediately was becoming a reader and not forcing myself, but actually a little bit at first it was a little bit of force. I forced myself to read consistently, and as I've mentioned a billion times in this voiceover already, having ADHD really causes consistency to not exist in your life. It can be pretty debilitating sometimes when there are things that you are interested in and are passionate about, and you spend a lot of time and energy dedicating yourself to those things, and then your brain just completely shuts them out and says like, you're not interested in that anymore. And so I feel like I have had that issue with a lot of things that that I thought I would be passionate about, or that I have been passionate about. And then it's kind of this cycle of like, I mean, I'll just be honest. It's this cycle of like hating yourself for not sticking to anything. And I think we're really taught in our society that like, if you can't stick to something, then you're lazy or, unworthy of calling that thing a hobby. Like if you are really into a certain band, but you don't keep track of every single song and every single album, or you fall off of, keeping track of the fandom or whatever, then you're not really a fan. Or, same, whatever the situation is. Like I love crochet and I love cross stitch, but I haven't crocheted in 2 months and I haven't cross stitched in 6 months. And so I have this feeling of like, well, I don't deserve to call myself a crocheter or a cross stitcher. And I think that a lot of that, I'm sure a lot of people struggle with that. But I feel it very heavily because of just the, I don't know why, just the fact that it is a chemical problem in my brain, and it feels very impossible to avoid. So, anyway, my point is that I have never been able to keep up with being a reader, even though it's something that I have always really, really admired about other people. Specifically, my brother has been a reader my entire life. He's my older brother, and he's only 2 years older than me, so we're really close in age, but he always had like a massive bookcase in his bedroom that was just full of books, and he was always reading. And I, like, through childhood, was very jealous of his ability to be what I viewed as consistent and a very dedicated reader. I've since learned that he reads very sporadically, but I didn't feel that way when I was a kid, and I just always wanted to be like him. And so it's kind of funny, like that's where my inspiration came from even when I was an adult. And so yeah, in 2022 I started dedicating myself to reading. So I was just like, I'm gonna take all of the stigma away. I don't care what I read. It doesn't have to be, you know, some impressive literary whatever. I don't have to force myself to just read classics so that they look good, or so that I'm, you know, there's a lot of, especially when you're getting into reading for the first time, there's a lot of like what feels like, I don't know, pressure to be some way, like read certain things or read in a certain way or whatever. And I just like let go of all of that. And I was like, if you want to do audiobooks, do audiobooks. If you want to read only romance, do that. If you want to, like, who cares? And so I did that. I you know, dedicated myself to reading, and my gosh, it worked. I read 64 books that year, and it was a really slow start actually, and so I'm surprised that I even read that much, but I did. And also really quick, this spread I'm just calling my library. This is just going to be a list of every book that I own that I have not read. That's it. This one is just simple, and it's for me to, you know, keep track of the books on my shelf that I have not read. And that's it. Oh, wow. Okay. Anyway, so that's where I'm coming from. That's the end of this video. I'm going to do a flip through here, but you kind of get my background, I think. I started reading and I read 64 books that year. This is a blank spread, by the way. This one I'm going to put all of my favorite book covers, all of my favorite books in that spread, and I will print out the book covers and stick them in. I'm just not ready to do that yet because I don't know if I'll wait till the end of the year, but I'm just not ready to go for that spread yet. I just don't know how I want it to look, so I just kind of left it. But anyway, so like I said, you probably get the gist of what I'm talking about with my background in reading. In 2023, thankfully, I read even more. I was able to read 94 books, and this year I am shrinking it down to 84 as my goal. So yeah, that is what's going on. Okay, well, thank you so much for watching. I know that I blabbed a lot, and I know that it probably made no coherent sense at all, but I had a lot of fun making this video, and I'm just not gonna fret about my voiceover or anything. I'm just gonna put it out there and enjoy the ride. So I hope you all join me for the rest of my spreads, and I hope you subscribe and join me for my spreads where I actually get to talk about books. I'm excited to do that. So I will see you all in my next one. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.